Welcome to today's webinar. So this is hosted by Unvired, and the title of our webinar today is Develop Generative AI Apps Using SAP Business AI. By the way, my name is Michaela, and I will be your host for today. Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we're excited to show you how generative AI is changing the way businesses innovate with SAP BTP. Now, before we get started, we do have a few quick housekeeping notes. Okay, so today's session is being recorded. We will be sending everyone here on the line a copy of today's webinar, and that will be included with the follow-up emails that we will be sending. As you can see above, we have a Q&A box there. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop it there anytime. And by the end of our session, we'll be going over those questions. Okay. And lastly, make sure to stick around until the end to learn about the special offers that we will be providing to everyone who have attended here today. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so just to give you an idea so far with these offers that we have here, here's what you'll be getting as a thank you for attending. So everyone here will be receiving a free remote AI discovery workshop, 50% discount on the pilot implementation of our SAP certified Unvired AI maintenance Genie agent, and lastly, special discounted pricing on custom AI apps built on SAP BTP tailored to your needs. So to take advantage of all of these
Are the
offers,
slides moving or just a quick question?
yeah,
Now I
it is.
see.
Thank you, Alok. Yeah, so as I was saying here, so all of these offers here will be sent to you all, and we'll be following up with you on a one-on-one call to discuss everything to you. So we'll be sharing the links after our webinar. Okay. Now, as you guys see on our screen here today, we have a few gentlemen joining us today. So let's meet our speakers. First, so in line, we have Srinivasan Subramanian. He's actually the CTO of Unvired, and he brings over 25 years of experience in enterprise software, mobility, AI, and product development. He was actually formerly a VP at SAP Labs India. So next in line, we have Praveen Kale, the VP of Products at Unvired. So Praveen here oversees product management and customer success. He has deep expertise in SAP and has delivered AI and connected worker solutions globally. And also starting us with a quick intro to Unvired is our CEO, Alec Pant. Here's what we will be covering here today. Okay, so we will be, of course, beginning with an intro here by a login to Unvired, and we'll be exploring SAP Business AI, followed by how to build custom Gen AI apps on SAP BTP using the Generative AI Hub. You'll be seeing key capabilities of SAP BTP, also a live demo of our Unvired AI Maintenance Genie agent. And then we'll be learning how we help clients go from idea to value through design workshops and POCs. Okay. Now, with that being said, we can begin. Alok, over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Michaela. So next slide, please. Can move with that. So real quick at the agenda, we'll give you a quick overview of Unwired and then really an overview also of SAP Business AI to put things in context. And then we'll dive into the meat of the topic, which is building custom apps on BTP. So next slide, please. Okay, so we are an SAP certified company, and while we build a lot of mobile app, web apps for today's discussion, our strength around building AI apps, generative AI apps on BTP, and our experience with SAP Build and SAP Integration Suite, I think those are the relevant skills that we have that are probably more relevant for today's webinar. So I'm just going to highlight that. Next slide, please. We want to quickly go to the meat of the discussion here, but I think it's important for everyone to understand that the reason we can share our knowledge today is because we've actually built over the last couple of months and our own AI app for asset maintenance on SAP BTP, and it is now certified by SAP, built with SAP Business AI. It is also on the SAP store. So I think, so we thought there may be other customers, other partners who are looking to build on BTP. So why not we share our experience? And as you can see, one of the things we're really proud of is that all our customers are happy and referenceable, and we take great pride in that. So let's move on, please. All right, so before we dive into custom AI on SAP BTP, let's understand the bigger picture here. So as SAP customers, you have access to various features from AI features from SAP. So a lot of you may be going to Sapphire and you'll hear a lot more on this whole embedded AI. Embedded AI is the out of the box features, over 200, 300 AI features that you can get that are embedded in SAP S4 HANA and all the line of business applications like success factors and others, right? And then Joule, of course, as SAP likes to say, AI is the new UI. So Joule is really the digital assistant that we will be using going forward. When you're looking for your purchase orders in finance or any other interaction, right? But today we're not going to focus on embedded AI and Joule. We are going to focus on custom AI, right? Building on BTP. But before we go there, you can see that's okay. All right. So yeah, this is good. So if you are curious about where are all these features from SAP on the embedded AI, there's a link there. Go to Discovery Center and SAP lists all the features by industry, by line of business, by domain, and you can see a glimpse of, for example, intelligent audit, financial business insights, all that is there. So that is certainly that we should all consider when we are thinking of starting our AI journey with SAP. Next slide, please. And then there's SAP Joule. Increasingly, we will hear more about Joule. I think in Sapphire there'll be more announcements. Joule is the diamond logo out there, right? And it really helps us get information more easily. And we'll hear about Joule Studio, Joule Agent, Joule Skills. All these are coming. But today we're not going to talk about these things. Rather, I think now is the right time to talk about why custom. So next slide, please. So why do you need a custom app? Let's start with that. So why? I can talk about why custom BTP. So if your use case is not easily satisfied by the existing business embedded AI within SAP, then you're looking to build a custom app, right? And so the choice is now you can build your custom AI on many platforms, but if you're already running your business on SAP, then we would argue that BTP is probably the best choice to run your applications on BTP. Also, when you run on BTP, you don't have to then sign a contract with Amazon or Anthropic. BTP is a one-stop shop, one contract with SAP, and you can access all your LLMs and all your compute costs. So I think there are two things. You need a custom app, and then BTP is probably one of your better choices because you already trust SAP. So next slide, please. Okay, at this point in time, I want to request Srini, our CTO, to take us through how we build the app using the different components on SAP BTP. So over to you, Srini.
Hey, thanks, Alok. So my name is Srinivasan Subramanian. I'm the CTO of Unvired. Try and take the next 20 minutes to explain what we've done with BTP, what our reference architectures customers can use to build this, and how we can help you do that. But Sushil, can you just go back to the previous slide for a second? I just want to cover one topic in that. Yeah. The last box, I think, is really the key when it comes to building GenAI apps on BTP, right? What SAP really looks at is what they call the 3 Rs, which is relevant, reliable, and responsible. So when you look at relevance, it's basically that the entire solution depends on the fact as to whether your data is proper, because garbage in, garbage out is a very common phrase you might hear. So one of the things with BTP is, of course, that you can make sure that the data that is going in is the right one, given the easier access to SAP HANA and other systems, right? Reliability obviously goes without saying, simply because people trust that irrespective of whether an AI agent, which is automated, or a person is giving the answer, they just believe that the answer is right. So it's important that we give reliable answers. And the last one, of course, is in being responsible relates more to privacy, making sure you avoid copyright infringements and so on and so forth. So the key in building apps, and I think where SAP helps, is really in these 3 Rs. Sushil, you can move on. Next slide, please. So if you have to build generative apps, AI apps on SAP BTP, where do you start? I think the key thing is the SAP AI Launchpad that you have to subscribe to and get access to, right? Because this is where you manage the entire AI development process. This is where you start. One of the key things you do here, of course, is what Alok mentioned in terms of the model deployment, right? So irrespective of whether you choose, let's say, OpenAI or maybe Anthropic Cloud, the deployment is key, right? So when you look at enterprise data, one of the first things that comes to mind is security, making sure there's no data leak, data is not used for training other systems, and so on and so forth. So what you get with BTP is, I think OpenAI works on Azure. That's where it deploys as a private instance for you, and cloud is on the AWS Bedrock landscape. So that's something which is safe, secure, and something that's provisioned only for you. The other thing that is also a benefit is you don't really need to get into contracts or agreements with these guys. You don't need to generate keys elsewhere and bring it in. The entire process is seamless, and SAP BTP handles that for you. The other thing, of course, is SAP AI Core, which is where the exact access to these models that are available. The prompt engineering tool set is available. We'll go into a little more deeper insight in that. But suffice to say that Launchpad is where you start, and then when you actually need to start doing the work, deploying these models, trying to work with these models, and then do your prompt engineering, which is your trial, saves and so on. You basically are working with SAP AI Core. So these are the two key units you need to start with before you can even get into building, deploying, and so on. Next. Okay, so this is really the component that you get to once you have deployed or selected your model, set up the deployment, you have your credentials, for example, and then you now have to decide how you're going to build the app, right? While we're going to talk a little bit deeper and in more depth as far as the SAP Generative AI Hub SDK is concerned, is really a Python SDK that you can use to start building up your apps. SAP actually offers you two modes, and we'll talk about the second one, I think, in the subsequent slide. But when you look at the GenAI Hub SDK, the benefit you get is, when you want to orchestrate these apps and make sure that, it goes through the different steps, you build in the required, integration pieces, you build in the required safety steps that you want. For example, the Genie agent that we built, two of the important things that were done was one was, to filter out PII as in private information, right? Personal information. The reason being, whenever people are filling out, for example, notifications, which is what we're dealing with, you might have information slipping in terms of, I don't know, phone numbers, names, and whatnot. So it's important that these are filtered out so that you don't really leak this out. And the other thing, of course, is things like profanity checking, because sometimes you might have language slipping in, and that's also something that the AI agent can handle and make sure that the responses are more dignified than that. So these additional steps, it's fairly simple to build it in when you're taking the Python Generative AI Hub SDK approach. All you have to do is basically start an app development. It uses, if you guys are familiar with LangChain, is one of the libraries that this SDK supports. So anybody familiar with Python and that would be quite home in terms of building out an app here. And then you can refer to those credentials and then start building out the actual meat of the application, which is in terms of either referencing that, inferencing, or maybe even building a RAG-based application. So RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, was something I just mentioned. So I don't know how many of you are familiar, but RAG basically allows you to take simple things like documents, could be Word, PDF, Excel, whatever, and then make it easily searchable and extract information out, right? Because if you guys use SharePoint, for example, all of us know how difficult it is to get information out of that, or similar to other DMS. So if you have a bunch of documents, it could be training manuals for your technicians, it could be other documents that your corporate users use. You can actually have what's called as retrieval augmented generation, basically split it into vectors. SAP HANA DB provides a built-in mechanism in terms of vector engine, so you don't need to look outside HANA for this. So again, goes back to safety and security in terms of the documents that you're vectorizing and storing. And then you can perform a two-step approach, right? First, search in the vector engine for the information you're looking for. You're going to get a bunch of results, and then send it to the LLM to summarize and give you the best choice. So RAG-based applications are live agents in terms of working on SAP data. Both can be built using this SDK. There's also something interesting. when you look at the SAP BTP platform itself, one of the benefits you have, of course, is, based on an enterprise agreement, you might have access to a variety of, BTP services, and you can pay for those using the BTP credits that you might have. So it gets you a quick start with whatever you already have. So, keeps that under control. Next slide, please. Okay. Before I go into this, I don't know how we missed that point before. Probably it was in one of the slides, but let me just mention it. SAP also offers another mechanism called as orchestration. So you can think of GenAI orchestration as, let's say, a low-code tool for you to build out these agents. So we've been discussing the Python SDK-based development, right? So it allows you to really build complex agents with deep workflows that you can build in any way that you really want it to behave, right? The orchestration engine in the GenAI Hub also allows you to build apps with more definition. So you choose the model, for example, then if you're building RAG-based agents, you can choose how you want to ground it, which means what are your boundaries, how far it can go, and where it doesn't hallucinate, and so on. So you can use the orchestration mechanism if you want to build, let's say, quick, low-code based agents. What SAP does with the orchestration engine, and that's where the prompt editor or the prompt mechanism that I mentioned before comes in. So you can use the prompt engineering, prompt editor, put in all your prompts, and then use that automatically in these orchestrated agents. All SAP does for you finally is to give you an endpoint that you can now call from either your SAP application or a chat interface in Teams or anywhere. So the entire process is simplified to the extent of just one REST API call to the agent to actually do the job that you've kind of put into the workflow. We have taken the alternative approach of building this using the GenAI Hub SDK in Python simply because, number one, the prompt for us is very dynamic. And that could be one of the criteria why you want to build something as custom. The second thing is, if you're familiar with LLMs and the terminology, there are two things, right, that people talk about. An LLM has a lot of general knowledge, right, general information. But when you're building an agent, let's say, to handle maintenance jobs or predict certain things, you probably don't want your LLM to be too well versed in writing poetry, for example. So what one does is think of the term of fine tuning or training as the next step. But fine tuning is what typically is recommended. So you give additional knowledge to the LLM so that you again try and focus the LLM in looking at a specific subset of knowledge that you want it to work with. Now, fine tuning and training is something SAP still doesn't support on the BTP architecture for LLMs. They do support it for more the traditional ML topics, which, predictive analysis, what's now called predictive AI. So in those cases, it does support it, TensorFlow, Scikit, and so on. But in the generative AI part, it is still not supported. And I think they plan to announce certain things in the Sapphire. So we might have more information for you later. But what we do instead is what's called, two-shot prompting, or providing examples to really do this job. So when you look at prompting in this case, it contains, of course, the information that you want to send to the agent to say, hey, these are the steps I want you to perform. Take the data and analyze it with multiple steps. So you actually give what's called a thought process for reasoning. And as part of that, you give it some extra data, right? You give it maybe a bunch of notifications in our case, or it could be other examples. So the LLM can actually use these examples to learn on the fly and then provide the required answers more accurately rather than just working on the knowledge it already has. So this approach allows you to roll out changes, make additional reference examples much quicker, improve the data that the LLM works with, as compared to fine-tuning, because that's a much larger process. While BTP does not support it directly, it is possible to do it, but it's all custom. So you need to really get your hands dirty in doing that. So it's not recommended at the moment. So having said that, if you look at the reference architecture, this is something typically any GenAI app, if you're using the Python SDK, would follow. So you do have your access points. In our case, it was more mobile devices and web apps. So that's what you see on the left, how the user interacts. This is very crucial because when you build the app, I think you need to also make sure that the endpoint for the users, how they access it, is very clear, right? Because if you're going to put it in some obscure app or link somewhere, it's not going to be that easily discovered or consumable. The best thing to do is to use your chat interface. So it could be a Teams chat or could be Copilot or any of these things, right? Or it could be a custom chat that's embedded within your mobile application, for example, or your web app. In our case, it was a custom chat that was enabled in addition to actions directly performed within the app, which Praveen will show you in a few minutes. The data for this primarily was S4 HANA. So when you look at notifications and all the supporting data, right, be it the damage codes, be it the object parts, so on and so forth, everything was being fetched dynamically from S4 HANA. And for this purpose, we use the integration suite. Now, the choice is yours in terms of how or what you want to do in terms of the integration. You could, for example, go from the Python program itself, but using the IS and the internal architecture that's proposed by SAP allows you to handle things like single sign-on and security much simpler. The Python app itself hooks up to the GenAI SDKs. In our case, we used Anthropic Cloud for two reasons. One was, of course, the fact that the context or the input that could be passed to the LLM was much larger. So we had a lot more ability in terms of being able to provide more examples for the LLM to work with when it was answering questions. And the second thing is very interesting, which Cloud did first, or Anthropic, and then OpenAI and others picked up, is what's called prompt caching. So let's say you have a prompt which doesn't change, too much across calls. Let's say 90% of it is the same and 10% is dynamic. So what Anthropic does was, they kind of cache this so that your costs go down. So although you may be sending it, I don't know, 1,000 tokens, maybe 900 is the same, it's already cached. So your costs go down, your responses goes down, which means the inference lag goes down. And that's very important because when a user asks a question, they want an answer in a few seconds, not a minute or longer, right? So it helps in all those cases, which is why we went with that. And in our example, we also found that Cloud was answering questions way better than OpenAI. So we chose Anthropic Cloud for handling all the notification-related questions and analysis, and we use OpenAI for the RAG. So you have the mobile app, you have the BTP and the SAP AI Core and the Launchpad, and the actual application was deployed. You might be familiar with the term Cloud Foundry. So it was a CF app, which was deployed on the BTP architecture again. The entire thing is automated. So you make a change, there's a CI/CD, which can then just run this, build it, deploy it. So cycling through multiple versions becomes easier. So while this is the reference architecture, it's typically what is recommended by SAP, but you can, of course, have additional topics, where maybe you have to access other systems. So you can, exit the box you're in, make calls, use what are called tools to basically call other systems, get additional context, improve the data. For example, you might want to build a mashup where you have some information in Salesforce, you have some information in SAP. You can actually combine this in the agent and then give out better information. And that's also one of the benefits of using the GenAI SDK as compared to the orchestration engine, which is more straightforward, and you can't do this, mashups and more complicated agents that easily. So this is where I'm going to hand over to Praveen so that he can actually take you through a few minutes of what the maintenance Genie agent is about and a demo. If there are any questions in whatever I've covered so far, please do drop it in the box so I can pick that up later. Thank you.
Well, thanks for that, Srini. So I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know when you start seeing it, and I can start the demo. So what we've seen so far is basically the theory behind how we actually use and deploy AI solutions. What I'm going to show you right now is how we have used AI in our mobile applications. So what you see on my screen right now is called the Unvired Enterprise Asset Manager. This is a mobile application that is used to digitize and mobilize plant maintenance processes in SAP. So a lot of companies invest in CMMS, so that they can streamline all their maintenance activities, make sure that the technicians and the operators have access to all the information within the enterprise at the convenience of their devices, so that they can execute those activities better, right? One of the other reasons why companies also invest in such solutions is to be able to report and capture information about defects in the field, right, accurately. So when you actually create a notification, which is nothing but reporting a problem with respect to an equipment, the users are supposed to enter a lot of information, like what is the the part that actually failed, what is the damage that was caused to that particular equipment, and what is the cause, right? So that's a lot of information that the users are required to capture. So let's walk you through the solution and show you what these steps really look like, right? So this is an application, this dashboard. I'm navigating to the notification style. And in this notification, what you're going to be seeing is, let me just take up a sample notification. So in this notification here, you have the function location and the equipment, which is at fault. And there is a lot of instruction, a lot of detail, which the users have already entered to report the notification. And what happens is, at the time of closing out the issue, let's say there's a job created and the users actually want to report what exactly was the problem with the notification. Then what they do is they have a tab called the items, wherein they capture this structured information about what the problem was. So when I go to the add item section here, in this section that you see, the technicians are required to enter a lot of structured information about what the failure was, starting with the object part, right? So in the object part, we're going to say, was it a gear? Was it a lubrication problem? Or is it a miscellaneous problem, right? So let's say it's a rotary swivel, and the supported codes are packing seals, gooseneck, and whatever else, right? So let's say I choose one of this. And what is the damage on this particular object part? I have to say that it was a mechanical failure, and the mechanical failure was probably due to vibrations. And the cause, let's say the cause was a design-related cause, and then improper capacity, for example, right? So this is the kind of structured information that the technicians are supposed to capture at the time of closing out this notification report. And this is required because if this information is captured accurately, the reporting is going to be better. And then if the reporting is better, then the way in which you can predict maintenance failures is going to be a lot more robust, right? But the success of a system is as good as the people who are actually using it. So do the technicians actually capture all this information accurately? That is a big question mark, right? So maybe the technicians do capture it, maybe they don't, right? Because this is a lot of information that we are requiring the technicians to actually capture in the field. What technicians maybe are more comfortable is to describe the problem in plain text, right? So what you're seeing here is this notification that was created for a particular equipment bounced between multiple technicians, right? And each technician had a little bit to contribute in terms of the analysis that he performed, the fixes that they made before handing it off to the next technician, right? So this is a typical case that happens in a lot of maintenance processes wherein the notification might move between multiple people before it is finally resolved by a certain team. All of that history, let's say, is assumed. Let's assume that it's captured in this long text, and we have a lot of description. And we can use this information to derive the structured closeout report, so to say, right? Instead of getting the technician to go through all that long text, all the history that has transpired across all those different technicians, all that we're going to do is we're going to suggest this long text to the AI assistant and derive all the object part damage on the cause codes, which we use to then close out the notification.
So Praveen, can I just add a sentence here? So basically the LLM, like Claude or whatever, is going through reading all the long text and based on that suggesting to the user, right? So that's where the LLM is coming, right? It's instead of humans reading these thousands of notes, it's the LLM reading and suggesting, right? Just so that people understand how this thing works. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely, Alok. Yeah. So what you're seeing right here is the Genie agent, which took in the context, right? So when I say the context is the long text which was entered by the users. Additional context was the equipment that failed, all the object parts, damage codes, and everything else that was defined in the SAP system, that's configuration. All of this is combined together and then fed to the AI assistant. And like Alok mentioned, it is analyzed, processed, and then the agent suggests to the user the failure modes, the object part, and the damages. So what we see here is the failure mode has been, what has been proposed is fail to start on demand, right? And this is the only code available, code group, and then we have multiple codes here. So let's say if I change something, if I'm not happy with what the genie suggested, I can change it to something, right? When I change it to something else, you can see that the marker there says user has modified it, right? But that I can always roll back to the suggestion that the genie proposed, and then it goes back to what the genie proposed. It's saying that fail to start on demand, right? So failure mode is just one suggestion. And this suggestion, whatever the multiple parts of that suggestion that we give to the technician can accept all of it or can accept parts of it based on what he feels is probably the most accurate to describe the problem. So let's accept the failure mode and go to the next step, wherein we have the object part which has been proposed, right? So the object part which the genie proposed is the electric driver. I accept that as well. I think it's okay. And then the next thing is I go to the damage. The damage here, it says mechanical failure and general. So maybe general is not the right thing according to me. I feel that it's vibration. So I say I change it to vibration. And then it says it's user modified. I accept it, move on to the next step. And then cause, it says it's a cascading failure and it's a miscellaneous group. So this is okay with me. So I accept that as well. And finally, if I have any suggestions that I need to give back to the assistant to say that, okay, look, even though you suggested a few things, not everything was accurate, but some additional suggestions from my side. So it can be anything. It can be very specific to a certain step, or it can be something generic. But as long as we give sufficient feedback to the assistant, so the next time we get back the results and the analysis, it'll be more accurate and closer to the problem description than it is now. So once it is saved, the closure report gets recorded, and I'm able to now submit and close out the notification. So this is exactly how we have used AI in our enterprise asset manager application.
And let me just add one point here, Praveen. So
yes, sir.
I think one of the important feedback that SAP gave us was that, whenever you do this, the human agency always has to be there. So if you see when the agent was suggesting and the technician was looking at them, the agent always, or the technician always has the ability to override the agent. So the human is always in control. And that is one of the very important, I guess, aspects of an AI application. So we just wanted to highlight that the human is in control here. Any other, I think we can open it for questions unless there are any other points you want to make, Praveen?
No, look. So this was basically a very simple use case of how we have used AI in our mobile applications. But of course, based on the complexity of the solution, we can have more interesting use cases. But yes, so this is a simple example to begin with.
Very well then.
So we are open for questions now, right, Michaela?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jens, Srini and Praveen, and also Alok here. So everyone, we are open now to accept questions. So as you can see on top of your screen, you can see our Q&A box there. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them there.
Can you go to the POC slide, Michaela? We didn't discuss the POC slide. Yeah. So again, okay. So I think the idea here was that we showed you an app we had built on BTP. So if you are thinking of starting your AI journey on BTP, here is what we would suggest. We can conduct a remote on-site or remote or on-site discovery workshop to help you figure out, hey, what are the use cases you guys are thinking about? How do they map with the embedded AI features already SAP is giving? And do you really need a custom app? So we can do all that, right? Help you do the AI design, as we call it. And then after prioritizing the use cases, one of the best ways to do this is to build something, right? So we can take you from idea to value. We can help you build a low-cost proof of concept, which can, bring your idea or your use case to life on SAP BTP. And throughout this process, we can get inputs from SAP. SAP has formed a team to help customers and partners We are working with them. So again, so I think along with SAP's help, we can really help you jumpstart your BTP journey. And remember, you do have the BTP EA credits, right? So use those credits and build something on BTP. And if you're interested, when we follow up or just let us know, we would love to see how we can get you jump started here.
Thank you for that, Alok. So we actually have some questions already here piled up on our Q&A box here. So we'll go over them one by one. Now, we have one question here that they wanted to know what measures are in place to protect sensitive business data when integrating AI solutions?
I think this is probably the biggest issue that everyone has when you look at going with AI, because one of the important things is, of course, that when you're working on these LLMs and AI, it's very easy to leak data. So I think fundamentally the two things you get when you use SAP BTP is, of course, compliance with standards like SOC 2, etc. More importantly, the connections to these third-party LLMs are now controlled by and managed by SAP. So you do have that element of control that there's no third party involved in terms of how the LLM connections and navigations are happening. Outside of that, I think as part of BTP and the multi-tenant isolation feature that's available, so it's only available, or the data is only available within the sub account in the workspace that you're working in. So that ensures that even if you have, other applications or customer data sitting elsewhere, there is no leakage from that front. Most importantly, no training on customer data. I think that's a guarantee that you do have, because one of the challenges you have when you're using a public inference point is that your data can be used for training. In this case, that's not going to happen, right? Another key feature I want to explain is what's called grounding, right, in SAP AI. So, and I think it's also related to one or two other questions which talk about, data and how do you protect that, right? So grounding allows the SAP solution to actually use the data internally in the network, and then it actually summarizes that data internally, and then only the summarized data is actually sent to the LLM, right? So that way, the actual data that is being sent is not the data in its actual form that it resides in SAP. So it's already transformed a little bit so that that also controls it. And lastly, you have PII, hiding or masking. So if you have private information that gets masked and then can be unmasked optionally. So you do have a lot of those built-in features. What we can do is I think we can follow up with maybe an email with more details on how these things can be controlled, because there's a lot more points that I can speak about here. A very crucial topic.
Thank you for that, Srini. Okay. Let's see here. We have another question here. So they wanted to know what is the infrastructure we need to build GenAI apps on SAP BTP? Is there any BTP services that we need to subscribe mandatorily?
Yeah, I think there are some services that you need to definitely subscribe to. The GenAI Launchpad, the AI core is mandatory. You cannot start working without that. And then, of course, depending on what your integration choice is, whether you're going to use IS or you're going to use custom integration, that becomes another aspect. And lastly, where you deploy this, because this automatically can be pushed and deployed on BTP Cloud Foundry. So you would also then need to pay for the runtime. The development is free, so you do get free workspaces with limited content capacity. But when the actual deployment for inference happens, then you need to have that. So there are a bunch of things you definitely need to subscribe to. And that's, I think, where Alok mentioned the credits can help so that you can actually get started.
Okay. Now, is Unvired's AI-powered mobile EAM solution a bolt-on or a standalone system?
Praveen, you want to take that? Or I can take it. It is a bolt-on system. It integrates with your SAP, S4 HANA plant maintenance or EAM module. So it is a bolt-on solution.
We can also add just a couple of lines, Alok, to that. So while it is a bolt-on today to our EAM solution, you can potentially use it anywhere you want. For example, the RAG, right, that is built in terms of searching for manuals and documents is not really used only by this application. So while we do make it available ready-made with this, you can choose to only go with the backend pieces, which is all the GenAI and the LLMs and the inference endpoints, and then actually integrate it with maybe an existing app you have. So flexibility is possible.
I think it may be different. I think you're talking about the AI piece. That question I was thinking maybe just the mobile piece of it. So the mobile, just to clarify, the mobile app is a bolt-on, but what we showed you today, the AI maintenance genie, can be used standalone for any analysis related to your asset management, requirement. Hopefully that clarifies.
I did see another comment, I think, which spoke about whether this works with ECC. It's not in the Q&A. Let me just pick that up, Michaela. So while we do connect to S4 HANA, we don't really limit. So our certification is on S4 HANA, but we can obviously implement the system with ECC or any other version of SAP there. That's not an issue.
So, Srini, there is a question, just the same question that you just mentioned. Is it possible to build apps on SAP ECC and backend as Oracle DB?
That's just what I answered, Sushil.
Thank you, Sushil and Srini. So another question that we have here, and maybe this could be our last question for today, but for the rest of the attendees who still has questions, we will be sending you a follow-up email after this, and we can definitely schedule you guys on a one-on-one with our team here to go over some of your questions as well. Okay, so they wanted to know here, how long does it take typically to build an app on SAP BTP, and what particular development skills do they need?
It's a little bit of a subjective answer, but as a reference, you can say it probably takes anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks to build, not more. Really depends on the use case, what's the training data you already have, and whether you have a clear definition of what your use case is. Probably 4 to 8 weeks is time to actually run the solution and then have something out of it. Development skills depend. If it's a straightforward agent, you can use the orchestration engine and the no-code ability to actually build it. Otherwise, it's typically Python, which is the most suited language for AI or any other development. Because there was another question. It spoke about how do you get data from silos and other unstructured sources. The benefit of using Python is that you can load Excel sheets, you can load CSV, you can load PDFs, what you have. So I think the biggest benefit of LLMs is, of course, the ability to work with unstructured data. SAP itself provides certain additional services which we haven't spoken about, like entity extraction. So you can actually use that service to get entities identified and extracted out of PDFs. So there are a bunch of things that you can do on SAP AI to kind of bring all this data together. And of course, there's the Dataverse, which is where probably finally all the data can reside. So, a lot of possibilities in how you can get data around, the systems you have and then work with it.
And let me just point out the Dataverse, which is now Business Data Cloud. So just okay. All right. So I think, Michaela, I just wanted to maybe remind everybody that we are ready here to help you conduct an AI discovery design workshops. Let's do some brainstorming. Let's get those ideas into value. And please let us know if we can help you start off with a POC.
Thank you for that, Alok. Now, of course, thank you as well, Srini and Praveen. Now, just before we wrap things up, any last words or any final thoughts that you have as well for all of our attendees here?
I just hope that we've been able to excite everyone enough to actually go down this path. And like we said, irrespective of whether we finally build this or not, we are there to answer questions and help. So, and work with SAP in actually realizing this.
Thank you.
I would say let's build on BTP.
Very well then. So thank you, gents. And as for all of our attendees here, thank you for joining us. Again, don't forget to unlock the special offers that we have here. So that's a free workshop, 50% off pilot implementation, and custom app discounts. So later on, you could just feel free to schedule a one-on-one with us, and we'll be sending you guys all of the necessary next steps for that. Again, everyone, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys during our next session. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.